There are behaviors that worked beautifully when you were 25, but copy, paste, and apply them at 55, and people start checking if you have an emergency contact listed in your phone. I watched a woman at a restaurant a few weeks ago do the baby voice thing while asking her date to open her water bottle. The guy looked at her like she'd just spoken in tongues. You could literally see him recalculating everything he thought he had known about her to that point. I mean, she'd driven herself there, parked, walked in, and ordered a normal meal in a normal human voice, and then suddenly couldn't manage a twist cap. What was charming in your 20s is exhausting in your 50s. What got you a second date back then gets you blocked now. And honestly, some of these moves weren't even that effective at 25. They just worked on people who didn't know any better yet, people who hadn't seen the same tricks 40 times. So today we're retiring some behaviors, putting them in a box, thanking them for their service, and showing them to the door, because the dating pool at this age has seen everything, tried everything, and fallen for everything at least once. Nobody's buying the old tricks anymore, and the good news, you don't need them anyway. Playing helpless is usually the first one to make an appearance, and it mostly shows up in women. There's the baby voice, the fake clumsiness, the theatrical struggling with a jar lid, the "oh, I'm terrible with numbers" from somebody who refinanced her own mortgage last year. At 25, men sometimes felt like heroes rescuing you from a wine cork. At 55, he's scanning your wrists looking for your medical alert bracelet. You parallel park like a stunt driver, but now a jar of marinara defeats you? He's not buying it. What the helpless act really communicates is that you think he's too fragile to handle a capable woman, that his ego is so delicate you have to pretend you can't do basic tasks. It's insulting. Men worth keeping aren't looking for somebody to rescue. They're looking for somebody to respect. Competence is attractive. Use your regular voice, the big girl voice, the one that's been running your life just fine for decades. Then we've got peacocking with possessions. He keeps adjusting his watch so it catches the light, and he mentions the Porsche like it's a third party joining you for dinner. At 30, this might have seemed impressive. At 55 or 60, most women have their own assets, investments, retirement accounts, and they can spot when the personality isn't carrying its weight, so the watch has to. When someone leads with their stuff, they're telling you that's what they think their value is. And if they measure themselves by their possessions, they probably measure you that way too. Nobody wants to feel appraised on a date. Lead with who you are, not what you bought. Because the stuff depreciates, the person doesn't, unless they let the props do the talking. Wait, did somebody just say recycling? I'm a huge fan of recycling. I rinse every jar and I sort every bottle. I drag that bin down to the curb like I'm saving the world. But every once in a while, there's a little wish cycling going on. That moment where you toss something in the bin and you're just hoping that somehow miraculously there's a machine out there somewhere ready to transform it and give it a second life. And honestly, there's a little wishful thinking going on here, too. I see you. Some of you are just hoping you'll stumble across this channel again when you need it most. And sure, you could hope, or you could simply hit that button and subscribe. That way you always know where to find me. For the coffee and the conversation, a little clarity, do it. Just go ahead and hit that button. I mean, hope is nice, but having a plan, way better. All right, now we can head on back to the episode. Why were they even talking about recycling? Next up is what I call the conquest resume. A man gets comfortable, maybe a drink or two comfortable, and suddenly you're hearing about the model he dated in Milan, the 28-year-old he had fun with, and all the women who once declared him the best thing since artisanal sourdough, none of which you asked for. At 30, this might have read as women desire him. At 55, it reads as very needy. It shows he doesn't know who he is unless he's being validated by other women. And here's the kicker. Every woman he dates becomes a story he tells the next one. If he's listing his conquest for you, guess who becomes bullet point number whatever the moment that you're gone? Confident men don't need references. They show up as themselves, present tense, not an old highlight reel. And then there's the negging. Oh, you're so pretty for your age. He's smiling like he just handed you a compliment wrapped in gold. At 30, it might have thrown somebody off balance, right? At 55, we've got decades of experience with this maneuver. Negging is insecurity dressed up as charm. It's a power grab disguised as flirtation, and it's a man trying to chip away at your confidence before you notice his lack of it. Confident people don't need to make you feel small. They don't compliment with qualifiers. They just tell you what they genuinely like about you. Anything else is manipulation, and we're already ordering the Uber. Let's talk about the sad salad. She wants the burger. Everybody knows she wants the burger. The waiter knows. The burger knows. But she orders the salad with dressing on the side. No cheese, no croutons, no joy. At 25, some men interpreted this as dainty or feminine, maybe. At 55, he knows she's going home to eat cereal over the kitchen sink because she didn't eat what she actually wanted. And now he's wondering why she felt she had to pretend. If you can't be honest about dinner, how are you going to be honest about anything real? Order the freaking burger. Eat it without apology. The right person will enjoy watching you enjoy your meal, I promise. The mysterious stranger act is another one that really needs to be retired. Where did you grow up? Around. What do you do for work? A little of this, a little of that. At 30, some women might have found this intriguing. At 55, it's a red flag wearing a trench coat. Either you're hiding something real, I don't know, a spouse, a warrant, or you're boring and hoping that mystery compensates for it. Either way, nobody wants to excavate your life story like it's a cold case file. Basic questions deserve basic answers. If intimacy feels like a threat to you, dating is going to be way too hard. Trauma dumping is another big one. You sit down, the appetizer arrives, and suddenly you're hearing the full backstory. Divorce, custody battle, estranged sibling, every painful detail rolled out before the first sip of your glass of wine. You know, oversharing sometimes got misinterpreted as emotional depth in the day, but after 50, it feels like being handed somebody's emotional luggage at baggage claim when you didn't even chuck a bag of your own. Vulnerability is wonderful. Earned vulnerability, not a data dump on a stranger who hasn't even decided if they like you yet. Share the real things when there's trust, not when the server's still pouring the water. Oh, then there's the giggle track, the person who laughs at everything. Traffic is hilarious. Needing new tires is apparently comedic gold. He says anything and she giggles like he's doing a tight 10 at the Comedy Store. At 25, he might have believed he was really just that funny. At 55, everybody knows what's happening. She's performing, and nothing kills genuine connection faster than feeling like someone is running a script instead of showing up as a real human. Gee whiz, lady, laugh when it's funny, not when it's Tuesday. Ooh, last minute Larry. Yeah, the guy who texts at 11:30 a.m. on Saturday asking if you're free tonight. 25 spontaneity was fun. At 55, spontaneity reads as, my original plan fell through and you're next on the list. Planning a date isn't complicated. Would you like to grab a bite to eat on Thursday night? Is really simple. It shows intention. It shows interest in you specifically, not in avoiding a solo evening. If somebody treats you like a gap filler, they don't deserve your Saturday night. And then there's drunk you as a personality. 4 drinks in, loud, oversharing, knocking things over, convinced that the night is epic. At 25, people said you were so fun. At 55, people are exchanging concerned glances and contemplating calling you a car immediately. Getting drunk to seem interesting only proves that you don't think you're interesting sober. And you probably are. Or at least you should be dating from the version of you who is. Here's the thing about all these behaviors. They're not just ineffective. They're kind of exhausting. Every single one requires performance, requires hiding the real you behind a character you think will get better results. And even if it works, you're trapped in the performance. At this age, the strategies that actually work are beautifully simple. Be yourself, be direct, be honest, take up space, eat the burger, use your real voice, and let people see who you actually are. The right people are going to stick around for that, and the wrong people will leave because they were never meant for you in the first place. And that's the whole point of dating. All right, I hope you found that interesting or helpful. If you did, you might want to check out this episode here. We could consider it a prequel to today's chaos. Hey, before you go, give my mom the thumbs up she's asking for if you would. I told her this episode might ruffle feathers, and she said, maybe add a disclaimer? I said, Mom, the whole episode is the disclaimer. She said, I don't think that's how disclaimers work, Carey. She's still explaining to me. I'm still not listening. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right there, because the sooner you retire what's not working, the sooner you make room for what actually is. Appreciate you being here today, and until next time, have a good one.